The Gregory Mahalik FTH 202. It's March the 6th. We are going to start on part 1 for this week's assignment. So right here we have our Taurus 856. I do have the side plate removed. I left it removed from last week. We will open the cylinder. That way we're free and clear. We see that the firearm has no ammunition in the chamber, as well as in the cylinder. Got it here in a vise for our trigger pull measurement. And go ahead and we're going to test the trigger pull in double action as well as in single action and report our findings. So right now the firearm is clear. We do have it in double action. We're going to test that first. Put our trigger pull gauge, keep it as level as possible. We're broke just a little bit over 12 pounds. We're going to try that again since the firearm did want to move. Reset this one, pull. Grip it just a little bit different. Alright, we'll have to add a little bit of that. Burn a minute. There we go. A little over 12. You can see we did surpass the 12 mark. Go ahead and bump our single action. Want to reset our gauge for our max reading. Fired, and we are right about 8 pounds. Make sure that firing pin retaining pin does not come out. We're going to now begin this assembly. Sorry about that light. Put our layout fluid on it, reassemble, run it through some drive functions checks, and we will then work on assignment, keep submitting parts as we do it, and eventually check a final, see what we can reduce the trigger pull to within safe readings. One of the things I kind of want to do before we do the test, you see the firearm is unloaded. Still, chamber is empty. So we're going to have to assess the feel of this trigger after we do our polishing and stuff. So I want to get a good feel for it in the hand before we do any internal workings of it. Definitely feel there's a hard part of that trigger. And you already tell there's some wear on the hammer from the side plate as well as a little bit on the trigger. So with the components removed, as you can see here on the hand, I did that bend. I did not lay out fluid there, but you can see on this back side where it's wore, especially there on the tip, and a little bit there on the front, slight bit on the top. On the hammer, you see where we had some wear on the double action sear, very significant on the wear, and on your left side of the hammer, and on the bottom as well, in the sear surfaces. Or yeah, hammer, sorry. Trigger. See on the right side of the trigger, there's just a little bit. Left side, see where there's some more wear, and then on your top. Then internal, you can see where there's some wear. Internal, we still need to get out the cylinder stop. Hang on. Pull the cylinder stop out, and you can see where there's a little bit of wear on that top. So we'll then get some stones and we'll start polishing these components, and I'll show y'all the after effects. Alright, we're back to the 856 in the vise. We've got the polishing components part of it done. Reset our trigger gauge. Left the side plate off for this. That way it's a similar comparison to what we did before. We let a little off for about 11.5. Not a substantial difference from polishing. I just use stones. I have not actually gone through with a polisher yet. The single action, definitely. We were at about 6 pounds on single action. So definitely Made a difference on the single, double, not substantial. We're going to go ahead and swap these springs out though on the internal and see what that takes us. Alright, so we've got our springs replaced. Go ahead and we're going to test single action first. When I'm sitting here manipulating the trigger, I feel the most significant improve on the single action. The 0R trigger gauge out right here. Just kind of just let my finger rest, just barely slide on it just to keep from slipping off as this gauge likes to turn. We're going to pull. And we're right at about 4 3/4. Go ahead and we're in double action. Let's go ahead and check it. Do not feel a lot of double action improvement. I feel a little. I think it could probably. See, we still got the torus device. You probably notice that grips still aren't on there. Side plate is still off. We actually had a slight mishap going on while we were doing our trigger pull measurements. I got about a 9.5 on the double action. I went to do an average to see what I was going. On the second pull of that average, the firing pin retaining pin actually took flight and is in my. I've looked all over. I heard it hit. It's gone. So I emailed Taurus. Hopefully I'll hear a response. It's been a couple days. Hadn't heard a response from them yet. Going to try to figure out a number to call them. Hopefully I can get my hands on one of those. Kind of some looking around online. I have seen that people are saying you got to go through an FFL. Taurus is saying it's a regulated part. Hopefully email them through a school email. They will maybe make an exception. Consider that, okay, yep, this was due to school curriculum. That it kind of just went ding, took away. So that's why we still have this in the condition it's in. I have not put any bluing on this. It still has the layout blue on them. Once I get that firing pin retaining pin in, and then I will finish the trigger to my liking after. But at this point, we have at least we're able to meet the requirements for this week's instruction. So we got this little Q-tip here just to kind of demonstrate that the cylinder is free and clear. You kind of see the white poking through there, and our chamber is clear. That went on to take it back out of the device. Again, we have our go no-go gauges here. At this point, we're going to check our headspace. We have the go gauge. We're going to insert the go gauge. I don't know why I was old, just normally go to the chamber, but need to insert it into the cylinder here. Make sure the cylinder closes. Check for play. We're good. At this point, we'll go ahead and remove the go gauge. Set an area where it won't fall off because they are hardened. We're going to remove no-go from our container, put our go gauge in the container, put our little ball back in there to protect it. Take the no-go gauge, insert it into the cylinder, and the cylinder should not close with the no-go gauge. Now, since these are hard, we do not want to excessively put excessive force on them because we can damage the finish or metal in the revolver. So we're going to pull the no-go gauge out, return it back into our little container, and that concludes the portion of actually working on the firearm. Lessons to take away from this week's assignment. Put your side plate on when you're going to do the trigger pull. Even if you're not going to put the screws in, go ahead and set that on there. That way it holds your firing pin retaining pin and stuff in and does not go flying off screen and put a hindrance into your progress. Now, if this was a customer's firearm, they would be expecting a pretty quick turnaround, especially if you gave them the time frame when they dropped it off. And if something like that happened, simple, call the customer, say, hey, I had a mistake, I'm going to order your part. There's going to be a little bit of delay, but there's going to be no extra charge for that part because it is due to my negligence. But that could put the customer in a tight spot on needing their firearm, depending on what they need it for, why they need it, where it could spread. They could leave that part out. Yeah, he called me and told me it was his mistake, cover the part. They could just say, yeah, the gunsmith had my gun, lost a firing pin, and I got it back at work, but there was a significant delay. So to prevent that customer from spreading bad word, put your side plate on. But overall, other than that, was a great hands-on, great taking it apart, great putting the blue out, the layout die on it, filing, stoning them, working with the internals of the revolver, getting to know them, becoming one familiar. Wish I didn't make that mistake, but hey, we'll learn from it. We won't do it again. Looking forward to starting week 5, and this concludes the revolver until we get a part.